Did you know that around 70% of people in the United States believe in life after death? And over 80% believe that we have a soul in addition to our physical body. Personally, I found that pretty surprising. Especially considering that we live in a world today where mainstream science flatly denies the reality of any kind of soul or spirit or life after death. Isn't it interesting that in today's world, science and spirituality seem to be in complete disagreement about some of the most important and fundamental questions that anyone could ever ask? On the one hand, spiritual teachings from all around the world and all throughout history tell us that we are infinite divine beings in a temporary human lifetime. That soul is real, that afterlife is real, that divinity is real, and that the fundamental reality is non-physical. Meanwhile, on the other hand, mainstream science tells us that there's nothing more to what we are than flesh and bone. When we die, that's it. Divinity is essentially just a human fantasy, and the fundamental reality is physical. So let me ask you something. How can this be? How do we make sense of this? Both science and spirituality are exploring the same one mystery of life, right? And when it comes to ultimate truth, there can only be one. Therefore, as a matter of logic, there must be a way to reconcile the disagreement here and create a grand unified theory of science and spirituality. In this video, I'm going to share a simple way to create a grand unified theory of science and spirituality by connecting new theories of consciousness to ancient teachings of the soul and new theories of the cosmos to ancient teachings about life after death. Here's the thing, this is about so much more than just interesting philosophy. This is about the future of our species. This is about the next frontier in our evolution as a human collective, and these ancient wisdom teachings could hold the key to a better and brighter future for humankind and life on Earth. So let's dive in. What's up, my friends? My name is Jonas. Welcome back to a channel dedicated to psychedelic education and consciousness exploration. Now, let me take a step back and just acknowledge that we could be on the cusp of one of the greatest scientific revolutions in the whole history of humankind. And it's just in the same way that hundreds of years ago, we came to realize that Earth is not at the center of the universe. The next evolutionary leap for us is to realize that this physical universe is not at the center of existence. There is so much more to the mystery of life than a physical universe, and there is so much more to the mystery of consciousness than a physical body. There is a way greater existence out there than anything we've even begun to discover. And it's just like my favorite Nikola Tesla quote, "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in a single decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence." Nikola Tesla and the true visionaries understood the importance of bringing together science and spirituality into a unified theory. And so in order to do that, let's first start with the mystery of consciousness. If you've followed this channel for any period of time, you know that I'm obsessed with the mystery of consciousness. How can it be, my friends, that every single one of us is conscious, and yet no one seems to be able to agree on what consciousness actually is? Somehow, consciousness is the greatest mystery facing modern science today. And if we connect new theories of consciousness to ancient teachings of the soul, we've come a long way as far as creating a unified theory here. Just in a recent video on this channel, we discussed the hard problem of consciousness, which is the problem of explaining how a material brain gives rise to an immaterial mind. It's easy to assume that the complex interaction of neurons in the brain creates consciousness, but that's just one theory. Why isn't all of this brain activity just happening in the dark with no one here to perceive it? And not a single person on planet Earth can explain how or why this is. This is known as the hard problem of consciousness. That term was coined by philosopher David Chalmers, who himself proposed that the only solution to the hard problem of consciousness is to posit that consciousness isn't produced by the brain.
Physicists sometimes take some aspects of the universe as fundamental building blocks: space and time and mass. If you can't explain consciousness in terms of the existing fundamentals, space, time, mass, charge, then as a matter of logic, you need to expand the list. The natural thing to do is to postulate consciousness itself as something fundamental, a fundamental building block of nature.
Chalmers proposes this unbelievable and intriguing possibility that maybe consciousness is fundamental. Maybe the brain is a receiver of consciousness just in the same way that a radio is a receiver of radio waves. The radio itself does not produce or generate the radio waves, right? And just in the same way, it's absolutely possible that the brain does not produce or generate consciousness, but rather is a receiver of consciousness. This idea is known as non-local consciousness, which suggests that the consciousness within each one of us exists beyond this physical body, beyond space and time, and beyond this universe altogether. And isn't it interesting and powerful to see how this idea perfectly aligns with ancient teachings of the soul? That there's some spiritual essence to who and what we are that does not begin at birth and does not die at death. So here we can already see a massive step forward in a unified theory. If we speculate that consciousness is non-local, all of a sudden we have perfect agreement between an existing legitimate scientific theory and ancient spiritual teachings about the soul. So the next question then is there any actual evidence to support this theory of non-local consciousness? And the simple answer is yes. This is exactly what we've been discussing for years here on this channel. And it comes from fascinating topics of scientific inquiry, such as near-death experiences, past life memories, mediumship, remote viewing, out-of-body experiences, mysticism, shamanism, and more. In fact, there's an entire field of research into all these topics called parapsychology, investigating the scientific evidence for these seemingly supernormal phenomena, using controlled experiments and statistical analyses. We have to understand that this is about more than just a couple fringe stories. There are mountains of data and evidence. There is serious data behind many of these phenomena, which directly challenges the materialist belief that the brain generates or produces consciousness. We cannot afford to ignore parapsychology as a field, as a discipline, but that's exactly what has happened, because parapsychology challenges the entire paradigm that modern science is in right now, the paradigm of materialism. Scientific materialism, of course, asserts that physical matter is the fundamental reality, that all things, including mind and consciousness, can be explained as the interaction of physical matter. What if scientific materialism was wrong? What if reality was way more vast and complex than anything we've even begun to understand? What if we live in some sort of a multiverse, for example, including other kinds of realities that are non-physical? I mean, it's obvious, right, that just because something is invisible or non-physical doesn't mean that it's not real. Consider, for example, the topic of dark matter and dark energy, which apparently comprises 95% or 96% of the entire observable universe. All scientists in the world agree that dark matter and dark energy are real, even though they're completely invisible and completely non-physical. We can't see them, we can't touch them, we can't interact with dark matter or dark energy, and yet they shape the very fabric of our cosmos. So in order to continue building towards this unified theory, we need to expand our thinking beyond materialism. And this is why I say that we are moving towards one of the greatest scientific revolutions in the history of humankind, because it is only a matter of time before we realize that scientific materialism is so fundamentally limited. We need to expand our thinking. Let me ask again, what if there are realms of existence, dimensions, worlds, universes, realities beyond this physical universe? This is often known as multiverse theory, right? Or the possibility that reality is interdimensional. This idea too, the multiverse theory, is widely accepted in modern theoretical physics, right? We have existing scientific theories that invoke this idea of multiverse theory, such as string theory, M theory, and the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics. All of these existing scientific theories postulate that reality is interdimensional, that we live in some kind of a multiverse, that there is way more to the mystery than this one physical universe. And again, here we find another bridge between science and spirituality. If it is true that we do live in some kind of a multiverse, all of a sudden, this casts the idea of spiritual dimensions beyond the physical in a very new light. I mean, again, we have mystics and sages and visionaries from all throughout time telling us that there are spiritual dimensions, that there are alternate planes or realms of existence beyond this physical universe. I mean, we find this teaching in ancient wisdom traditions, such as in Hinduism, which has an elaborate system of lokas, or other planes of existence. All right, so let's try to bring this all together here. Right now, we already have two legitimate scientific theories that allow us to build a bridge between science and spirituality and create a grand unified theory, namely non-local consciousness and multiverse theory. These two theories provide a simple and elegant framework for us to completely rethink these ancient teachings of soul, spirit, life after death, divinity, past life memories, and a whole variety of parapsychological phenomena. And it's all pointing to a new paradigm for science, a new paradigm beyond scientific materialism that is not based on belief or dogma, but that is based on truth. And it cannot be overemphasized, the importance of this. This is about the fundamental nature of who and what we are. I mean, if it really is true that we are infinite divine beings in a temporary human lifetime, if it really is true that there's something within us that does not start at birth and does not die at death, that changes everything. I mean, stating the obvious. It means that we're not separate from the universe, but deeply connected to something greater. And it sets the stage not only for just some scientific revolution, but for a revolution and evolution of humankind as a species, a mass shift in consciousness, a global spiritual awakening, at a time when we so desperately need it. We are living in a time of crisis in so many different respects, and Einstein put it perfectly. He once said that no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness from which it was created. This is the only way forward. We must realize that we are not just separate, isolated meat machines, but that we're all part of a greater spiritual reality. We're all woven into the same fabric. We are all one. We're all like waves in the same one ocean of life, and somehow modern science today is denying that the ocean even exists. Well, my friends, as always, very curious to hear your thoughts. Please comment down below. What do you make of all this? I mean, do you agree or do you disagree? Please share down below if you've ever had an experience that's helped you to spiritually awaken. And please also check me out over at Patreon, where you can support this work. Liking this video and subscribing to this channel is a really simple, easy way to help this grow, and I appreciate it so very much. Thank you all. I'll see you back here very soon.